Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 172. And if you're listening to this episode and you're wondering what happened to episode 171, I didn't post episode 171 on the audio platform because I was having some audio problems. It wasn't great sound. But if you're interested in watching that episode, you can do so on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, and you can find all of those links to all those platforms on my website, which is According2Sam.com. You can also, I think, watch the episode there on the website as well. Again, that's According2Sam.com. And moving forward, you're going to be able to either watch or listen to the podcast when we kick off the new schedule beginning of next year. Still not sure exactly what that schedule is going to be, but I'm going to be doing a few more of these over the next 2 weeks. The year is winding down fast, but the purpose of doing these podcasts between now and the end of the year, the reason that I did episode 171 was to identify bugs, technical bugs. This is all new, bringing the podcast to video. I had some sound issues, like I said, in the last podcast that I think that I have worked out. We'll see how this goes. There's some other issues that I'm hoping to identify in this podcast. So I've been getting pointers from some of you guys that watched the last podcast. I really just want to be here behind the mic and to present the show to you. I'm not a technical guy. I'm doing all this by myself until the podcast grows and I'm able to hire people to do some of this stuff for me. But it's a one-man show. I'm the control room. I'm the producer. I'm doing all of it. So with that said, let's get into what I have for you today. And Again, I'll be back with a new schedule in the beginning of the year, hopefully have everything worked out. And I'm asking for your help, your assistance. If you want to give me any feedback, you can give me feedback by emailing me from my website, According2Sam.com. You can reach out to me on any of the platforms that I'm on. I'm on all of social media platforms. You can find me by doing a search for According to Sam, and I appreciate all your feedback. Today, I want to talk about impeachment. And we're going to talk about impeachment, but we're going to talk about the election that is getting kicked off here. And we're getting ready to go into an election year next year. And the Iowa caucuses are less than a month away. We're pretty much in an election season. And the House of Representatives has voted to open up a formal impeachment investigation in Joe Biden. All this stuff I predicted on my audio podcast before I took a break in June. If you go back and you listen to the last podcast that I did in June, it's called Blood in the Water. That's the title of the podcast because I was talking about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and the fact that there is blood in the water. And I believe that Joe Biden's getting sacrificed because a lot of Democrats see that he's a loser and they don't want him to be the nominee. So we're going to talk about that in this podcast, the impeachment of Joe Biden, impeachment in general. We're going to get back into Trump's impeachments as well, at least his first impeachment. The second impeachment, that's a podcast, in itself, which I will be doing a podcast about that, talking about January 6th. And I've done podcasts about them, audio podcasts about January 6th, but now I'm going to be able to show you some video. I'm going to be able to show you some video of January 6th. So I'm really looking forward to that. But the first clip that I want to play is this clip. This is just a montage, what do they call it? Supercut of clips of the hyperbolic language that you're hearing from the mainstream media about the threats of a second Donald Trump presidency. If you haven't seen this, take a look. We won't watch the whole thing because it's long, it's ridiculous, and you only need, 10 to 15 seconds of this to really get the picture of the hyperbole, but also the fear that these people have. Take a listen.
What would a second Donald Trump term look like?
Well, he cannot be the next president. Because if he is...
You can't imagine the things that he's going to do. Mexico, Canada.
People will begin in their minds to censor themselves. They might say, well, maybe I shouldn't say this.
This is the end of democracy.
I think that could be the end of our democracy.
But democracy is dead if Trump is reelected.
The Justice Department could be entirely transformed.
I am really concerned about that.
Every person who was associated with the attempted coup elevated in the administration.
If he's reelected, he will curb transgender rights.
The end of the rule of law.
Arrest political opponents.
To persecute, not prosecute, but persecute his enemies.
Take a wrecking ball to the rule of law.
He's going to make the law. Everyone else will have to follow.
A vote for Donald Trump may mean the last election that you ever get to vote in.
To go after the independent and free.
So, a little bit of trouble there with that transition. Gonna get all that worked out. But you see the point there. These people are fear mongering. It's ridiculous fear mongering. Nobody's paying attention to them. Nobody believes them. They're like the boy who cried wolf. And if you remember the story of the boy who cried wolf, remember that the boy would cry wolf, wolf, and everyone would get up and run, and there was no wolf, and the boy would laugh, ha, 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 I tricked you, there was no wolf. And then he would do it again, wolf, wolf, and everyone would get hysterical and go and run away, and there was no wolf. And he started laughing. And he does it a third time. And now people are getting the picture that there's no wolf. There's no wolf. These people are being completely hyperbolic and saying that Trump is a threat to be a dictator or whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the reason that these people are so scared is because there is some truth that Donald Trump will have some flexibility that he didn't have in his first term, just like Barack Obama said. You guys remember when Barack Obama, hold on here, was on the hot mic talking to Dmitry Medvedev. And what Obama said to Dmitry Medvedev is that, here, you got it right here.
My last place, please. Yeah. After my election.
Here, let's listen again. He's talking to the president of Russia at this time, Dmitry Medvedev. This is Vladimir Putin's second in command. This is 2012, and this is Obama on a hot mic talking to the Russian president. I don't know if he was president at this time, but he's basically Vladimir Putin's second in command. And Obama's on the hot mic with him, doesn't realize that he's being recorded, and he's promising Vladimir Putin more flexibility after his last election. This is what the deal is with Trump and why they're so afraid. Take a listen to what Obama says here.
Yeah, and after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, and after my last election, please. Yeah, and after my election, I have more flexibility. My last election, please. Yeah, and after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, and I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand.
I transfer this information to Vladimir, is what he says. I transfer this information to Vladimir. But note what Obama is saying, that this is my last election. After I'm not accountable to the voters anymore. And that's where Trump will be if he's elected. He won't have any more re-elections to worry about. He will have more flexibility, like Obama admitted that he would have more flexibility after his last election. And that's why these people are so hyperbolic. That's why they are scared to death about Donald Trump getting reelected, is because they know what they've done. And they know that if Trump has more flexibility in his last election, that he's most likely going to come after them. And that's why they're scared, because they're all complicit in what was done, not only to him, but to the American people by what they did. Now, let's do a quick recap on what they did to him. Hillary Clinton paid a former MI6 intelligence officer from Britain to compose a fake dossier, a fake intelligence report using Russians and scandals in Russia, golden showers and all this, all of it fake. Hillary Clinton commissioned this former British MI6 intelligence officer to create this document. And then this document was leaked to all of the media. It was leaked to the FBI. And then the FBI took this document, this phony document that Hillary Clinton commissioned, and they took it to a FISA court. And they got a FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page, who was working for the Trump campaign back in 2016. And they spied on Carter Page. And they spied not only on Carter Page, everyone who Carter Page came in contact with in the Trump campaign. They were all spied on. And they were masked. But then after they captured all of this communication, they went and they unmasked members of the Trump campaign while he was running in 2016. And then they used the information that they gathered from this unmasking and they fed it to the media so the media could use it to hurt Trump politically. And they used all of that, the FBI and the media, to launch a special counsel investigation, all predicated on this fake, phony dossier that Hillary Clinton commissioned Steele to create, the former MI6 agent. And they created this whole narrative that Trump was in collusion with Russia. The special counsel investigation lasted for the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. And then when it was over, there was no evidence of collusion. There was nothing. And now we know that Hillary Clinton started it all by paying for this phony dossier that was used to kick off this investigation. They ran it for 2 years. And then when that was over, that phony scam was over, then they started the Trump impeachment in 2019, which we're going to talk about today. Let's get started talking about that. Let's get this. But that's why they're scared. That's why they're afraid of Trump coming back in office. That's why they're using all of this hyperbolic fear-mongering, because they're afraid of what he's going to be able to do and what he's going to do in a second and last presidential administration. Let's take a listen to this clip about Trump's first impeachment and what that scandal was all about. Take a listen.
Here in Washington, we are witnessing extraordinary scenes. The potential impeachment of an American president is not something that politicians here take lightly, but they have decided to press ahead because they believe that there is enough evidence that Donald Trump abused his position as president for his own political gain. Now, the White House hoped that releasing that telephone call with President Zelenskyy of Ukraine would be enough to calm all this down. That has not worked, I should say, and there will be more evidence from the whistleblower report that kicked all this off being
You guys remember all this. You remember the whistleblower Alexander Vinderman was on the phone with Trump talking to Zelenskyy. Trump called and talked to Zelenskyy to congratulate him on an election that he won. Alexander Vinderman was on the phone. He overhears the conversation, immediately goes and runs to his twin brother. His twin brother, I forget what agency he worked for, but then it blew up into this huge scandal. They went to Adam Schiff, who was the chairman of the Intelligence Committee at that time, and they were looking for a reason to impeach Trump. And I'm going to prove that to you here in a moment, but let's listen to more of this clip.
Later this week. As we speak, I should say, Donald Trump has met or is meeting with President Zelenskyy of the Ukraine at the UN in New York. The Ukraine president quipped, "Better to be on TV than on the phone." That's what he's just told reporters. President Trump, of course, denies any impropriety. He has spent the day dismissing all this as a Democratic witch hunt. But enough of the Democrats, Jackie, have said that they are united in this call for impeachment, and they are determined this time to press ahead.
I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
So this is when they announced that they voted on an official inquiry into impeaching. This is the beginning of the impeachment process. You have to vote on the investigation, as they did with Joe Biden on this in this past week. So the investigation is officially over. They don't ever go back on the impeachment after they've opened the investigation. It's a 90% chance that they're going to impeach Joe Biden after they open the investigation. Supposedly, Joe Biden was stonewalling, not giving them everything they wanted. This is going to, they say, give them more subpoena power. And this is going to be a big deal for Joe Biden. But this is the same thing that happened with Donald Trump. And in the beginning, Nancy Pelosi, she didn't want, now I'm getting ahead of myself. Listen to a little bit more of this clip.
Impeachment, and they are determined this time to press ahead.
I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
As the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi made him the fourth U.S. president to face a formal impeachment inquiry, Donald Trump was in Trump Tower, tweeting, "Presidential harassment." By this morning, he was back at work, attending a meeting about Venezuela in New York.
It's the single greatest witch hunt in American history, probably in history, but in American history. It's a disgraceful thing.
The Democrats have been talking impeachment for months, but they've held off.
Democrats have been talking impeachment for months, but they've held off. Take a note of that.
Because taking the plunge is a huge political risk, especially ahead of an election year, and could play straight into President Trump's familiar victim of the establishment witch hunt narrative. But allegations he'd urged a foreign leader to go after his political rival Joe Biden and withheld aid money as leverage have tipped the Democrats over the edge.
So that's why I'm playing this, because I want you to understand that the impeachment of Joe Biden, this case against Joe Biden, is connected to the impeachment, the first impeachment of Donald Trump. They're connected. They're connected. Let me show you real quick how they are connected. Show you guys this. All right. So this is the timeline of events between Trump's two Ukraine phone calls. Okay. So the phone call in question that Trump had with Zelenskyy, that Alexander Vinderman overheard him having this conversation with Zelenskyy, went running to his brother, and it exploded into this huge scandal that led to Trump's impeachment. This phone call happened in 2019. And hold on, let me show you exactly. I think it was up here in April. Let's see here. Okay, here it is right here. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was in April. It's in this first paragraph. The White House on Friday released a transcript of President Trump's April 21st phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, congratulating him on the election. So April 21 in 2019 is when the phone call happened. The investigation, we now know today that the investigation into Hunter Biden, the official Justice Department investigation, started in 2018. Months before this phone call. So everything that Trump was talking about, it wasn't to frame his political opponent. He was asking Zelenskyy to aid in an official DOJ investigation. There was no, asking Zelenskyy to frame Joe Biden or anything like that. There was already an investigation into Joe Biden and his son. Mostly his son. They were investigating his son. That's what the investigation was into. But also, Joe Biden, he completely denies over and over again that he had nothing to do. So that was part of the investigation. That's what Trump. So it wasn't digging up dirt on Joe Biden. It was asking Zelenskyy to aid in an official investigation into Hunter Biden, which also could lead to his father. So that's why they impeached him. So they impeached him to cover up what was going on in Ukraine and this selling of his office, of Joe Biden's office, also through his son. This is all legitimate. And now, not only is Hunter Biden being indicted, he's not being indicted for the FARA violations, but he's being indicted for tax evasion. And he's still being investigated for, acting as a foreign agent. So that those indictments still may come down the line. But not only is Hunter Biden being indicted and investigated to this day, 5 years later, now they're opening up an official investigation into Joe Biden. And Donald Trump was impeached for this, for asking Zelenskyy to aid in this investigation that started the year before this phone call happened. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Listen to more of this clip.
But allegations he'd urged a foreign leader to go after his political rival Joe Biden and withheld aid money as leverage have tipped the Democrats
that stuff ever
over
happened.
the edge.
The fact is that the President of the United States, in breach of his constitutional responsibilities, has asked a foreign government to help him in his political campaign.
Now the investigation into Joe Biden is going to help Trump politically, but that's not why they opened the investigation. They didn't open the investigation to help Trump politically. The investigation was opened by Bill Barr and the Department of Justice. And it was a legitimate investigation. And we know it was a legitimate investigation because the investigation is still going on 5 years later. And Hunter Biden is being indicted. And an investigation for impeachment is going on against Joe Biden. So it was completely legitimate. Now, it may help Trump politically. Don't get me wrong. It may very well help Trump politically, but that's not why they did it. And that's the case that the Democrats tried to make.
In breach of his constitutional responsibilities, has asked a foreign government to help him in his political campaign at the expense
Now, the funny thing about this,
security.
Investigating in 2020, a formal investigation into Hunter Biden and Joe Biden hurts Joe Biden politically and helps Donald Trump. But all the investigations that they're doing on Trump right now, that doesn't help Joe Biden. Joe Biden's Justice Department. Joe Biden's Justice Department has indicted Donald Trump twice. While Donald Trump is his leading opponent in the 2024 presidential election. That's the case that they made in 2020. that Donald Trump, the case they made was Donald Trump is trying to hurt his number one political opponent, and an argument can be made that Joe Biden was not the number one political opponent of Donald Trump in April of 2019. A case can be made for that. Maybe Joe Biden was leading in the polls at that time, but this is a guy who lost the Iowa caucuses. He lost New Hampshire. Everyone had to drop out in South Carolina for him to even secure the nomination. And the fact that you're trying to make the case that this guy was the lock for the nomination in April of 2019, and that Trump asking Zelenskyy to aid in this official investigation is, attacking his number one political opponent. But that's what they told us. Well, Trump is by far going to get the Republican nomination. He is by far the leading person that is going to challenge Joe Biden for re-election next year. And Joe Biden's Justice Department has indicted him twice. So if Trump asking Zelenskyy to aid in an official investigation into his leading political opponent in April of 2019, if that was a bad thing, then why is it not a bad thing for Joe Biden to use his Justice Department to indict Trump going into 2024 when Trump is obviously his leading political opponent? It drips of hypocrisy, but that's who these people are. A little bit more of this clip.
Has asked a foreign government to help in his political campaign at the expense of our national security. That cannot stand.
Hilarious. At the expense of our national security. What are you talking about? What does arming Ukraine have to do with our national security? They're still trying to tell us, give us that line today that if we don't support Ukraine, that it's going to hurt our national security. Nothing can be more ridiculous. These people are absolutely ridiculous. Has nothing to do with our national security.
At the center of it all, Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy, seen here arriving at the UN this morning.
I love it. Check out Zelenskyy wearing a suit. This guy never wears a suit when he comes to the United States today, but he's wearing a suit. Check it out. Why doesn't he wear a suit when he comes to Washington to beg for $60 billion today? It's hilarious.
Seen here arriving at the UN this morning, an actor who played the president on television before remarkably becoming Ukraine's actual president this year. No one can pressure me because I'm the president of an independent country.
No one can pressure me because I am the president of an independent country. That's what Zelenskyy said from the beginning, that there was no quid pro quo. There was no pressure on him. That's what he said. Hold on. Let me find it here. Right here. No one can pressure me. Trump did not pressure me. No one can pressure me. That's what he says. Ukraine president says no blackmail in the call. So there was no blackmail. There was no pressure. Even Zelenskyy says that there was no quid pro quo. So what was Alexander Vinderman all worked up about, and Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, that they had to impeach Donald Trump for this? Is because they were protecting Joe Biden. They were protecting him, and that's why they impeached Donald Trump, because they were afraid that
Only
Donald
one
Trump
person can pressure me.
Was going to find out what the House Republicans are getting ready to find out with this investigation.
My 6-year-old son. 1 week after Donald Trump froze nearly $400 million in military aid to Ukraine, President Zelenskyy took a call from President Trump on July the 25th. That led to a whistleblower complaint against the U.S. president.
All right, July the 25th. I'm sorry. So I thought that it was in April. So this is even later in the year. So July the 25th is when the call took place. That must have been an earlier call in April.
Aid to Ukraine. President Zelenskyy took a call from President Trump on July the 25th. That led to a whistleblower complaint against the US president. During the conversation, Donald Trump raised unproven claims that Joe Biden tried to interfere with a Ukrainian prosecutor's investigation into a gas company that his son, Hunter Biden, was on the board of.
Yeah, so that's not an unproven claim. I have the clip. I'm going to show it to you here in a moment. Joe Biden admits that he got this prosecutor fired, that he leveraged a $1 billion IMF loan to Ukraine to get this prosecutor fired. Joe Biden admits that.
In the last few hours, the White House released what it called an unredacted transcript of that call.
We're going to listen to the transcript here in a moment.
But which...
Look right there. It says it. Look right here. Hold on. Look what it says right there. Boom. CrowdStrike. What's CrowdStrike have to do with this? You guys see that? CrowdStrike. 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 Who's CrowdStrike? We're going to talk about CrowdStrike.
The transcript of that call, but which was labelled a memorandum that was not a verbatim transcript of the discussion. I would like you to do us a favour, the president said. Then later, there's a lot of talk about Biden.
Then later. So listen to what she says here. Listen, the media is so crafty. She says, I would like you to do me a favor. The favor, as you're going to see here in a moment, the favor was pertaining to CrowdStrike. It had nothing to do with the Bidens, had nothing to do with the legitimate investigation into Hunter Biden. The favor was about CrowdStrike. And then later in the conversation, it's almost a 10-minute conversation. Later in the conversation, he brings up the investigation into Hunter Biden and asking Volodymyr Zelenskyy to assist the attorney general in the legitimate investigation. But Democrats conflated the two. This earlier conversation where the earlier part of the conversation where Trump is asking Zelenskyy to do him a favor and to help him find the servers that he believed for some reason CrowdStrike had taken to Ukraine. Later on in the conversation, he brings up Hunter Biden has nothing to do with the favor. And at no point in the conversation does Trump say that you're not getting weapons unless you do what I'm saying. None of that ever happened. So this impeachment is 100% phony. Phony. The Trump impeachment, but it's connected to what's going on with Biden because they were covering for Biden. More here.
Son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great.
The Attorney General. So this is the later part of the conversation. Let's go back here. Show how they do this.
Son, Hunter Biden, was on the board of. In the last few hours, the White House released what it called an unredacted transcript of that call, but which was labelled a memorandum that was not a verbatim transcript of the discussion. I would like you to do us a favour, the president said. Then later,
I would like you to do us a favour, the president said. And then 5 minutes later in the conversation, brings up Hunter Biden. But they conflate the two. They did this in the impeachment hearing, and they're doing it in the media. That they're trying to make that Trump is asking for a favor pertaining to Biden's. That's not what the transcript says. It's not what happened. It's 100% a lie.
There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great.
With the Attorney General. Whatever you can do with the Attorney General. Later in the conversation, he says that the Attorney General is going to be contacting you. We want you to work with the Attorney General in this official investigation that started a year ago. They impeached Trump for this.
Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. The summary doesn't include President Trump explicitly promising to release aid money in return for an investigation.
There it is. Doesn't explicitly say that he's going to, with hold weapons or that that the aid is contingent on him doing anything. It doesn't say that. He never said that. It was always a lie.
It sounds horrible to me. The summary doesn't include President Trump explicitly promising to release aid money in return for an investigation into the Bidens.
In this transcript, there is no quid pro quo, there is no improper leverage, and the overall tone of this transcript is that it is mutually laudatory.
Now the House Judiciary Committee will decide if there's enough evidence to draw up so-called articles of impeachment. Then, if a simple majority in the Democrat-controlled House voted for President Trump to be impeached, the next stage would be in the Republican-controlled Senate, where a trial would be held, presided over by the Supreme Court Chief Justice. And if 2/3 of senators acting as a jury found the president guilty, he'd be removed from office. Then, say hello to President Mike Pence. For the Democrats, it is a huge risk, but however slim the odds of success, enough of them now believe they have no choice but to try.
They have no choice but to try.
There. Well, earlier I spoke to the Democratic Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib, who's been the target of President Trump's criticism. I started by...
The whole reason that I wanted to play this clip, because at the end of this clip, Rashida Tlaib, they bring on Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from Michigan, to give her point of view. And this is hilarious. Take a listen.
By asking her why the Democrats who have held off before think now is a good time to start an impeachment inquiry.
Well, I think many of my colleagues, they weren't trying to impeach him. They were trying to hold him accountable, trying to get his administration to comply with congressional subpoenas. Many of us, including myself from day one, have been concerned about him violating...
Day one. She says day one she was concerned. Okay, we're going to see what that means here in a moment.
The United States Constitution that requires sitting presidents that take the oath of office to divest in their businesses so that we can take out any kind of, pay-to-play activity that corrupts our democracy out of play when he makes decisions that should be on behalf of the American people, not behalf of the best interests of his companies. Now is this fear that we have allowed him to continue to be so lawless that he actually committed extortion and asked the country of Ukraine to help him in a personal matter that, to me, I think very much puts our national security at stake.
There's no evidence in the notes which have been released of the president offering any sort of quid pro quo to his Ukrainian counterpart.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if where I grew up, it sounded very much like a mob scene. Congratulations. I want to help you, but you got to help me. I have a favor. I'm going to have my personal lawyer call you. Oh, I'm so glad that my personal
lawyer call you. The Attorney General working on a legitimate investigation that started in 2018 into Hunter Biden. It's not his personal lawyer. It's the Attorney General for the United States. And what is she talking about? Where I come from. And you see that she's bringing in the favor. I want you to do me a favor. Favor has nothing to do with Hunter Biden. But the reason that I wanted to play this hypocrite is look at her face. You look at her face. You know, this woman on the night that she was elected, that's why she said day one, on the night that she was elected, you got to remember what she said. Oh, that's not it. Hold on. We're going to get it. Hold on. Got it here. This is the night that she was elected. Rashida Tlaib. Take a listen.
People love you and you win. Woo! And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
She said that the night that she was elected. The night that she was elected. Day one. She says that they came in on this blue wave that was all sparked by the Mueller investigation. If there was no special counsel investigation and all the stuff that I told you about in the beginning of the podcast, it's very unlikely that they would have won all those seats in 2018. But on the night that she was elected, she comes in and she says that we're going to go in and we're going to impeach him.
People love you and you win. And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker.
So that was night one when they took over. They were already, even before they took over the House of Representatives in 2018, they had been attempting to impeach Donald Trump many times. Many times. Take a look. Right here. This is an entire Wikipedia page that is devoted to the amounts of times that they tried to impeach Donald Trump, even before this phone call with Zelenskyy. So acting like this phone call with Zelenskyy is what initiated this impeachment. They'd been looking for a reason to impeach him for the entire time that he was in office. Summary of efforts starting in December 2016. Elizabeth Warren, Dick Durbin, Chris Coons introduced a bill that required the President of the United States to divest of his assets. So they were going to impeach him because of his business. In the beginning, look at all this. Early developments. 2017, first year in office. All of these efforts to impeach him. Let's take a listen to Al Green here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart. I rise today with a sense of responsibility and duty to the people who have elected me, a sense of duty to this country, a sense of duty to the Constitution of the United States of America. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
So this is 2017. 2017, they're calling for his impeachment. All these efforts to try to impeach him. Luis Gutierrez here.
Mr. Speaker, we waste a lot of time in the House Judiciary Committee passing bills we've already passed year after year that go nowhere. But now evidence is growing that our elections were interfered with by a foreign adversary. Evidence that the President and the Attorney General have been less than truthful about their meetings and relationship with this foreign adversary. And other committees in this body in the Senate and at the Justice Department have launched investigations into the behavior and truthfulness of the President, his subordinates, his family.
Now they tried.
House Judiciary Committee.
They tried many times to impeach him in those first couple of years, but the only problem is that Nancy Pelosi refused to back impeachment. And that was the only difference. All these members of the House were committed to impeaching him, and the only difference and the only thing that blocked them is that the Speaker of the House in 2018, Nancy Pelosi, wouldn't go along with all of these nut jobs like Al Green and the others, Rashida Tlaib and the others who were itching to impeach him from day one. Nancy Pelosi said, no, we got to hold our fire. Take a listen to what Nancy Pelosi says.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says that if you and the Democrats take the House back in 2018, the first thing you will do is impeach President Trump. Is that true?
No, I believe that whatever we do, we have a responsibility, first and foremost, to unify the nation. Second of all, you can't go down any path without the facts and the law. If that's there, perhaps it will come out in these investigations. I've been, on the left of our party is still annoyed with me for not impeaching President Bush for going into Iraq. What could be worse than that?
What could be worse than that? What can be worse than President Bush lying us into the war in Iraq? President Trump asking Zelenskyy to help the Attorney General to aid in a legitimate investigation into Joe Biden's son and his business dealings in Ukraine? That's worse than George Bush lying us into the war in Iraq. And when I say lying, that's not me saying lying us into a war in Iraq. Nancy Pelosi says that she believes George Bush lied us into the war in Iraq. Nancy Pelosi says that she knew that George Bush was lying the entire time, that she was on the Intelligence Committee. So George Bush lying us into a war where millions of people got killed. We lost, 6,000 soldiers, not including the contractors, not including the wounded. It cost us $5 trillion. But Trump, in a conversation with Zelenskyy, asking him to aid in a legitimate investigation, is worse, I assume. But this is what she says.
We've got to really be saying what this election means to people in their lives. Somebody has some facts that come forth about President Trump, that let the chips fall where they may. But it's not someplace that I think we should go.
Not a priority.
Not someplace that we should go. Now, that's what she was saying just before the election in 2018. And she was saying, no, we're not going to do impeachment. There's no reason to impeach, even though I'm hearing it from all of these clowns like Al Green and Rashida Tlaib, and from my entire caucus that want to impeach him. We're not going to impeach, is what Nancy Pelosi said. Listen to her again here. This is a little bit later. I think this was in 2018 at the Washington Post.
There's some overriding principles, and one of them is the guidance from our founders, e pluribus unum, for many one. They couldn't imagine how many we would be or how different we'd be from each other, but they guided us to remember that we are one. And when we make decisions and prioritize actions and consider options, that oneness, what keeps us together as a nation, is a very compelling imperative for me and for House Democratic leadership. So impeachment is a very divisive course of action to take. We shouldn't do it for passion or bias, or it has to be about the presentation of fact, and it has to be about patriotism, not about partisanship.
So that's what Nancy Pelosi was saying in the beginning. That's what she was saying, that we're not going to go down the road of impeachment. We don't have the evidence. But what Nancy Pelosi was actually doing, she was keeping her powder dry. What Nancy Pelosi meant is that the time is not right now. The time is not right. What she's basically saying is hold, we're going to impeach, but we're not going to impeach yet, because the evidence, there was never any evidence for impeachment. As I told you, the investigation started in 2018. 2018. I want you to listen to this clip. This is Jonathan Karl. And Jonathan Karl was on The View. This was after Hunter Biden, remember that sweetheart deal that he had made, and he was going to make a deal where he was going to pay his back taxes, and they were going to make the gun charge go away. And it was a plea deal. And I think it was a judge in Virginia blew up the plea deal and, was asking Hunter Biden, when he showed up for the plea deal, are you under the impression that this plea deal is going to give you immunity from any other crimes? And Hunter Biden was like, yeah, I think it's going to give me immunity from the FARA violations and everything else. And the prosecutor was like, no, I mean, who told you that? And the judge is like, you guys haven't worked this out? So it blew up this plea deal. So the plea deal was blown up. But after this plea deal was announced, a lot of people were, questioning this plea deal. Jonathan Karl was on The View, and I want you to take a listen to this conversation that Hot Karl had with Sunny Hostin.
Because this investigation began in 2018. I remember
the investigation began in 2018. The phone call with Zelenskyy is in the summer of 2019. The investigation began in 2018. The phone call with Zelenskyy was in the summer of 2019. Take note.
Because this investigation began in 2018. I remember in 2014, you asking questions about Hunter Biden and Burisma and what was going on with that, and was that nepotism? Why are we only seeing charges 5 years later, and why are these charges limited to these cases?
Well, first of all, it's important to point out that the prosecutor here, David Weiss, was appointed under the Trump administration. So his investigation, which again started under Trump,
in
has been going on
2018,
for 5 years. We don't know the full extent of the investigation. We do know that he did have access to that laptop. We do can judge based on the witnesses that went before the grand jury that he looked into questions related to his dealings in Ukraine. But, you know, it's a great question. I was concerned. 2014, this is almost 10 years ago. I found it remarkable that the son of the then Vice President of the United States was getting paid $50,000 a year by the largest Ukrainian energy company. He kept getting that money all the way until 2019. And he had no apparent skills or experience on the questions of energy. And at that point, while Biden was vice president, he wasn't just vice president, he was the point person for the Obama administration on Ukraine. Right. So it seemed to me, which is why I asked the question in a White House briefing, that there's at the very least an appearance of a conflict of interest. Why did they hire him?
So Jonathan Karl is the one who says in 2014, he's wondering why Joe Biden's son got hired at Burisma on this board and making over $1 million a year. Jonathan Karl's not a Republican. Jonathan Karl doesn't work for Fox News. He works for ABC News, and he's always pitching for the Democrats. And he says in 2014, I was wondering what's going on here with Joe Biden's son on this the board of this corrupt energy company. But not only that, Jonathan Karl says, in knowing that Joe Biden was the point person for Ukraine in the United States administration from the Obama administration. That's what Joe Biden says here. Take a listen. He says that he was the point person.
They made, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine.
So I got Ukraine. This is the conversation that I mentioned earlier that I was going to play for you, where Joe Biden says that we talk about quid pro quo and what Trump got impeached for. Joe Biden admits here in this Council on Foreign Relations meeting that he used a $1 billion IMF loan to force Ukraine to fire their prosecutor. That they didn't want to fire the prosecutor, and they wouldn't have fired the prosecutor if Joe Biden had not leveraged this $1 billion IMF loan. We talk about quid pro quo. And the fact that Ukraine tries to posh itself as some sovereign independent nation, Ukraine is a vassal state. It was a vassal state of Russia, and now it's a vassal state of the United States. Ukraine doesn't have the ability to be independent. And that's evident by the fact that their survival depends on us passing another $60 billion loan to them. That shows you that they're not sovereign. So they're a vassal state. And Joe Biden's over there admitting that he's over there telling Ukraine that if you don't fire the prosecutor that you don't want to fire, but I'm telling you, you have to fire him, or you don't get this $1 billion IMF loan. This is what Joe Biden's talking about here. Take a listen.
I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. If the prosecutor's not fired,
Oh, bitch, you got fired. Because Joe Biden leveraged the $1 billion IMF loan. I mean, this is why this guy's being investigated right now. And that's what Jonathan Karl is talking about when he says that I thought that it was strange that Joe Biden, who is the point person for Ukraine, I thought that it was strange that his son's working as on the board of this corrupt energy company. And Joe Biden's the point person for Ukraine. Now, how did Joe Biden become the point person for Ukraine? And to answer that question, we're going to return to the phone call. If you remember the phone call that Victoria Nuland
could come in Monday or Tuesday.
This is the phone call that Victoria Nuland was having with the then ambassador to Ukraine. This is before the 2014 coup. But take a listen.
The other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see how things start to fall into place.
So on that piece, Jeff, when I wrote the note, Sullivan's come back to me, VFR, saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So
Okay.
Biden's willing.
Okay, great.
So Biden's willing. So Biden's willing. You need Biden. So hold on. I think it's in the beginning here when, hold on, let's listen to all of
Agree that
this.
Sari could come in Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something
exactly.
to make it stick together because you can be pretty sure that if it does start to gain altitude, the Russians will be working behind the scenes to try to torpedo it. And again, the fact that this is out there right now, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind why Yanukovych did that. But in the meantime, there's a Party of Regions faction meeting going on right now, and I'm sure there's a lively argument going on in that group at this point. But anyway, we could land jelly side up on this one if we move fast. So let me work on Klitschko, and if you can just keep, I think we want to try to get somebody with an international personality to come out here and help to midwife this thing. And then the other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see.
So listen to this is the ambassador from Ukraine. He says that we're looking for someone with some national exposure to come in and midwife this coup d'etat where they're using the Nazis in Ukraine to overthrow the legitimate Ukrainian government. This is what the Obama administration did in 2014. This is the phone call that Victoria Nuland from the Obama State Department, who's now working for the Biden State Department, they're having this conversation about who's going into the new government after the coup happens. And then that's what they're talking about. They need someone to come in and midwife this thing, someone with national exposure is what he said.
Let me work on Klitschko, and if you can just keep, I think we want to try to get somebody with an international personality to come out here and help to midwife this thing. And then the other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see how things start to fall into place.
So on that piece, Jeff, when I wrote the note, Sullivan's come back to me, VFR, saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So
Okay.
Biden's willing.
So Biden's willing. So Biden is this international face, this international persona, because he was in the Senate, he was on the Intelligence Committee for 30 years. He's the international guy who's going to be the face of this coup d'etat. That's how he gets to be the point person in Ukraine. He becomes the point person. His son immediately is getting jobs with corrupt Ukrainian energy companies with no skills. There's no, he has no experience in the energy sector. and he's working for this corrupt energy company. And Joe Biden, this happens immediately after Joe Biden becomes the point person for the coup d'etat, the new government. This is before Petro Poroshenko. Before Petro Poroshenko, if you listen to that phone call with Victoria Nuland, they're talking about the government before Poroshenko. This is the Arseniy Yatsenyuk and the Nazis, the Nazi government, that Joe Biden's coming in to be the point person, the midwife for the transition from the Yanukovych government into the Nazi government. And then his son is immediately getting a job on the corrupt Ukrainian energy company. Jonathan Karl from ABC News says that in 2014, I was concerned with that. That not only was he concerned with that, his entire network was concerned with that. This is ABC News.
Now to our ABC News investigation this morning into Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and questions about money he made from foreign business dealings while his father was vice president. Our chief national affairs correspondent, Tom Yamas, traveled to Ukraine to try to get some answers. And Tom, what did you find?
Dave, good morning to you. This is actually an issue Joe Biden has been dealing with since 2014, but it's come up again because he's now running for president. Republicans, including President Trump, are trying to hammer Biden over this. At issue was Hunter Biden profiting off his dad's work as vice president, and did Joe Biden allow it? We're talking about millions of dollars in at least 2 countries. Mr. Vice President, Tom Yamas with ABC News. How you doing? Got a quick question for you. It's a question we tried to ask repeatedly.
This is ABC News. This is a question that we tried to ask repeatedly. Joe Biden could have headed this off in 2014, 2016. He could have stopped and answered these questions. He could have, killed this story if there was nothing to it immediately. He ran from the press, from ABC News. This ain't Fox News that he's running from. He's running from Jonathan Karl and ABC News, people. You're crazy.
Can we ask you about Ukraine and China? But kept getting blocked. Questions about foreign deals his son Hunter Biden pursued.
My father, Joe Biden.
In countries where Joe Biden was working as America's top diplomat. In 2014, Ukrainians, sick of corruption, revolted. Vice President Joe Biden went to Kiev to help the new government.
You have to fight the cancer of corruption.
But then, something strange happened. Just 3 weeks later, a Ukrainian natural gas company, Burisma, accused of corruption, appoints Hunter Biden, seen here in their promotional videos, to their board of directors, paying his firm more than $1 million a year. Hunter, a lawyer who had just been discharged from the Navy Reserves for testing positive for cocaine.
Mr. Hunter Biden.
He had served on other boards, but had no known experience in Ukraine or natural gas. We went to Kiev and found even among Joe Biden supporters.
Even amongst Joe Biden supporters. Listen to what the Joe Biden supporter says.
In Ukraine, Hunter's hiring was troubling. How do you judge what Hunter Biden was doing?
I think that Hunter Biden did a very bad thing.
I think that Hunter Biden did a very bad thing. So Hunter Biden does a very bad thing. A legitimate Justice Department investigation is opened up into the bad thing that Hunter Biden did. Donald Trump, in a phone call with the president of Ukraine, asks the president of Ukraine to aid in the legitimate investigation of the bad thing that Hunter Biden did, and possibly Joe Biden. And Trump's impeached. That's cause to impeach Trump. Well, this is the second episode that I've done on video. I got bugs. I know that I got bugs to work out. But I'm going to work them all out. We're going to be back probably in a few days. I want to do at least 2 more of these before we start next year, get all the bugs worked out. But again, you guys give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. I'll see you guys soon.